Here is the latest Africa news update.
And there's a tremendous amount of innovation going on in Africa in general. Maria mentioned South Africa, and again, it is interesting the way in which South Africa is bringing the disease under control, and how African countries are actually, in many ways, in some ways, showing the way. The strategy in South Africa was based on preparation, primary prevention, lockdown, and enhanced surveillance. 67 mobile lab units around the country, 28,000 community health workers trained in case detection, and I think over 120,000 tests completed with a 2.7% positivity rate, which is incredible, that much testing for that return. So we're seeing performance levels there again, congratulating the government and institutions of DR Congo for the superb way in which Ebola has been brought under control. We still have some way to go. So I think in general, we need to leverage the capacities that exist in Africa, the innovation, the science. We need to connect those scientists, we need to connect those laboratories, those clinicians across Africa. Again, the Director General, working with our Regional Director, Chidi Moeti, and the African Union have been heavily engaged in trying to drive innovation, both in the public and the private sector across Africa. And it will be very important that studies in Africa are led by principal investigators from African institutions, and obviously reaching out to collaborators in other parts of the world. And I trust that those capacities exist. And again, to point to the rapid evolution of capacity. At the beginning of this epidemic, and I will point to the fact that WHO began distributing validated testing kits in Africa on the 24th of January, which was 7 days, 8 days a week before the declaration of the global public health emergency. But it was the laboratories at Institut Pasteur in Senegal and NICD in South Africa that trained all of the laboratory technicians from all over Africa, who then met up with their new reagents when they returned home. We're also seeing the use of high throughput diagnostic systems in places like Kenya, where superb technology that's been provided by the Global Fund and others has been repurposed to use for high throughput diagnostics in many African countries. We're working very closely with the Global Fund, with UNICEF, with UNITAID, to accelerate the availability of reagents for those high throughput systems. So I think we're seeing very, very good things happen, but we're very cognizant of the challenges. So we are at the beginning in Africa. I believe that with a focus on preparation, on surveillance, on community mobilization, and on the undoubted capacity for innovation and science in Africa, that we can avoid the worst of this pandemic. But we are also cognizant, as the DG said, that there are lives and there are livelihoods, and the impacts of long-term lockdowns are having a severe impact. So we have to find a way forward in Africa that can balance the risk of the virus against the risk to people's livelihoods and people's lives at the same time.
If you like informative and educational videos on Africa, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch all our latest videos. And please feel free to leave your suggestions, news tips, or topics about Africa you'd like us to cover.